So I finally saw Sinners. Um, I heard a lot of good things about it. I was really excited to see it. And what happened over here in Hong Kong, because I'm in Hong Kong, was that the movie didn't release in the official time that it released around the world. I'm not really sure what happened or why, because every other film was releasing quite normally, and this film it didn't really have any controversial elements necessarily, so I'm not sure why the release was so delayed. And it got so many good reviews, and it was a box office hit in other places. And finally, after two whole months, it got a preview. Right now, it got a preview, and then a few weeks later, it's gonna have the wide release in Hong Kong. Um, yeah, I actually really enjoyed this movie overall. It was very well done. It's historical film with horror elements. I think that's the best way to describe this movie. It's like they combine historical um, things that have happened in the story takes place in the 1930s in America. So they show how this how black people lived at that time, and they show the way that they were setting up juke joints, because black people were not allowed to go to the white areas, so they had to set up their own establishments, um, for themselves, really. Like they wanted a place for themselves, so that's why they had to set up these kinds of juke joints, uh, which is basically like um, a club where they can drink, they can eat food, and they can dance, and that's definitely part of the really big part of the culture. Um, and the story is about this kid who is the son of a preacher, a Christian pastor. His father is, of course, a very religious guy. He's a pastor. He's preaching, and his son, who they do name him, but it's like goes by in passing. But I think he's called Preacher Boy, but it's not his real name. But they call him Preacher Boy. So Preacher Boy, the son of this pastor, really wants to be a musician. That's what he's passionate about. That's what he is talented in. So he doesn't want to go with his father, who wants him to quit all this music, and he says that all this music is the devil's work. That's how this very fundamental Christian thinks, right? That's kind of their belief, and this guy just doesn't want to do anything with that. He doesn't believe that. He wants to play music. That's what he's passionate about. That's what he wants to do, and so he joins his cousins, who are played by the stars of the film, Michael B. Jordan. He's playing two roles, one as Smoke and one as Stack. They're twin brothers. So Stack is supposed to be more of this gangster, bad boy type of guy, and Smoke is meant to be a more level-headed guy who makes more logical decisions. Like at least that's how they kind of show it, and they bring him on because they want to start this juke joint with him. They want him to play the music at the juke joint, and they know that he's very talented. And in the first half of the film, they go around recruiting people who they know to be part of this juke joint. So it very much felt like a movie about business, back in the 1930s, how these guys, they're black, they're trying to set up business in this very um, very difficult time period, very hostile time period, where they're dealing with racist people, in the US at that time, the majority white people, and they're also dealing with the other criminals in that area, where there's one successful black guy, and then immediately some other people try to steal their stuff. It's like a very dangerous zone that they're in, but they're still trying to make it work as a for the people. They want to have their own place for the community. So that's what they're building, and they smoke goes around um, recruiting people, and also Stack is also trying to recruit people. So Smoke goes to his ex-wife, who is a sort of this. I think she believes in magical things, and she also believes in the supernatural stuff. So then Stack is going around recruiting this other musician who's very old, and that musician is already very jaded. He's a drunkard. He has seen a lot of things. He has seen how his um, he has seen how his buddies have been killed by the KKK. So you see the that kind of harsh time at that time. That's why he's like not very confident that these brothers are going to be able to keep up with their stuff, because even if they have the juke joint, it might just be closed down. They might get killed by the KKK or something else. So it's definitely a very dangerous time, and it's very interesting how they go around recruiting people throughout that time. They recruit this Chinese couple to design um, their logo, their designs, and they want them to be part of the club to run the operations. So that was also very interesting, like the relationship between not just black people within themselves, but also black people and the Chinese people, the Chinese immigrants. So that was really interesting to see, and I feel like you don't really see that much in other historical films, at least from my knowledge. Usually, it very much focuses on just one community, and that's it. And this film tries to show the relationship between the black people, the Chinese people, and also the white people, the half white people, like the character of Haley Seinfeld. She's meant to be this mixed race woman. So that was also very interesting to see. But I did feel like she could have been in the movie a little more, because I felt like there was a lot to explore. But since the movie had to get to the horror film phase, it kind of rushed through that, and we didn't really get it as much. But moving on, there was a sequence in this movie which is I don't know whether I should spoil it, because the starting part is more of the setup. I don't think it's a spoiler, but the later part it turns into a horror movie with vampires. So it wasn't out of nowhere though. The way that people were talking about in the initial reviews, they were saying it really comes out of nowhere. It's a complete tonal shift. You don't expect it. It suddenly happens. But it's not really that way. They set it up at the start of the movie itself that whenever the music plays, this very talented musician plays, it could transcend across space and time, but also the evil comes knocking at the door. So that was already established within the start of the movie, and they also show the culture of, like, I think West Africa, and um, they show multiple different cultures that have this tradition where they play the music to invoke the spirits, and then evil also comes knocking at the door. So I'm saying it was already set up, so it wasn't as jarring. And also they show in a part where the vampire first get introduced, and it's not with the juke joint. It's even before the juke joint scene. There's a scene where the there's these Native Americans who come to the KKK couple, and they're like, "Oh, are you hiding someone in there? That it's not who you think." And the woman, she's a racist woman. She's just holding a gun at him in a very hostile way, and and then it's like she gets the payback of, like, that's what happens when you're like that racist. Um, yeah, that whole sequence was also very interesting. So, what I really like in this film is that the director not just combines horror elements, but he combines horror with the real cultural historical thing that people went through in America, with the racism that they dealt with, the Native Americans, their culture, and the white, the KKK thing, and the mixed race. Like all of this are combined into this whole for this horror movie rather than um, made into this. It's not just focused on just the cultural elements, and it's also not just focused on showing jump scares, showing gore, blood, even though there's a lot of that. But it's all infused in with the cultural elements so well that it's much more than just a horror movie. It's much more interesting than just historical account where they just by the numbers just say, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened, and that's all there is to it. So I really like the way that they infused these kinds of supernatural elements to tell a more metaphorical tale with the story. And then moving on to the second half of the movie where they have this juke joint finally. It's the grand opening, and these brothers are, they're happy that they're getting the customers, and they have these disagreements here and there, but they're still happy that they're having this, and they're reuniting with their girlfriends, and this um, the preacher boy, he also has a hooks up with a woman, so it's like everyone's getting what they want to get, and then the horror element comes in, and it feels more impactful because we know these characters more, we are familiar with them, we know their struggles, we know the cultural context that they come from, we know what they've been through. Yeah, that's why the horror element is even more powerful, it's even more shocking. And whenever a character dies, I was like, oh shit, they really died, they're not coming back. Like it really does feel very impactful to me whenever a character dies. um and I think it could have been even more stronger for sure, but even to this extent in a horror movie is already really good, I think. Because horror movies are always notorious for just having characters just so that they can be killed, just so that the um, you can get moving to the special effects, the gore, the blood, and at the end, that's all there is to it. There's nothing more significant when all there is to it for horror films is gore or jump scares. I think it doesn't really. It's shocking in the moment, but afterwards, it doesn't really matter. But for this film, since you know these characters so well, the gore is very, like, yes, it is over the top, yes, it is very brutal, bloody, and there are some really disgusting moments, but it's all done with the context, so that's what I really liked. um, and so as you as I'm saying all these praises, is it that the movie's perfect? Is there no mistakes at all? No, I think there are quite a bit of problems in this movie. It's not really a perfect movie by any means. Does it live up to the hype? I think it does, but I just don't think it's a perfect movie by any means. There are some problems, and the problem, right out the bat, um, this is a DCP that I watched. I didn't watch it in film. I don't think there are any film projectors anymore in Hong Kong, as far as I know. Pretty much every single film, whether it's an IMAX film or not, it gets screened in a DCP. So yes, there is a laser IMAX, but this movie isn't showing in IMAX for some reason, as I said before. So this movie was I saw this movie in a um, CGS screen, which is, I think, I found out that it's a competitor to IMAX screen. It's a Chinese competitor to IMAX screen. So I like the picture quality. It was pretty good. I didn't feel like it was worse than an IMAX or anything like that. The screen was pretty big, and it was pretty detailed. But the problem I had, I'm still not sure whether it's the screen and the projection problem, or it's the cinematographer who shot it this way. Um, but there were a lot of moments that were much darker than it was supposed to be. So I don't know where it went wrong, whether it's a DI or just the director was like, you know, this is my vision. I'm just gonna make it really dark. Even the daylight exteriors, there were scenes where you're supposed to see the actors' faces, but for some reason they just let it be like that. So I was so confused why that decision was made, and it's definitely not because the actors are dark skinned. Like, I've seen other films with primarily black cast, where the lighting is completely different from this movie, where every scene is lit very well. Um, but this movie, I think I'm really not sure whether it's really a deliberate stylistic choice, or they wanted it to be natural, so they didn't want to use too much like external light sources. So whatever scene they shot, they wanted it to look natural. In that sense, yeah, sure, it's amazing, but I would have preferred if there was more key light on the actors. But that's just me. I'm not saying that there were other shots in the movie that were not good. I think most of the shots in this movie were really, really good, really well done. I really like the cinematography, but it was just in moments where it was way darker than it should have been, I think. Um, and I'm mostly talking about the day exterior, not the night exterior, or even the the juke joint sequences. Like juke joint sequences were supposed to be dark because it's taking place at night, and it's meant to be a dark um, place, so there's no problem in that. But the daylight scenes where it was way darker than it should have been. I feel it would have been better if there was a little more key light that was used. um, but then again, I don't know whether I'm judging this correctly because I watched it not on IMAX. I watched it in CGS screen. So maybe it's a problem with the projector, maybe it's a problem with the DCP that was sent to Hong Kong. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what happened, but either way, yeah, overall it was still pretty good. I really liked a lot of the shots showing the sunset, the clouds, and the way it shot the historical setting, because there was one scene where they showed this marketplace. It was so gorgeously done. I really loved it. And I'm such a big fan of historical films. Whenever a film shows historical settings, the way people lived every day in those historical settings, I'm always really interested to see, because I'm really curious about how people lived before the internet, before electricity, before modern communications, and how people had to get around, go around places quite frequently, um, because they could not text, they could not just send an email, they had to walk all the way, or they had to drive all the way to talk to someone or recruit someone. So that was very interesting to see in this movie. I really loved it. um, and Also the way that they showed how people lived, it was also really interesting. And moving on to the vampire stuff, the way that the lore behind the vampires, the way they showed the vampires was also pretty interesting. Um, because the way that they show the vampires is not the same as how they show it in other movies. As I said before, this movie is trying to show more of the culture and the context here with its historical settings. So the vampires are not the only bad guys in the movie. The vampires are bad, of course, but there's also the KKK who are, scheming to kill these guys. So that was also pretty like a interesting thing that they did. And I also like the lore about how these vampires are, even though they're vampires for sure. They're killing everyone. They don't care whether you're black or white or Asian. They do not care. They just want to eat you. They just want to bite you and make you their own, and make them live forever, right? That's their goal. And to me, it seemed like a metaphor for people like P Diddy and Drake, Harvey Weinstein, these kinds of people who abuse their power, and they're so powerful. They get these talented musicians, actors, into their circle, and they make them do all these fucked up things. We've heard about all these freak offs that happen in P Diddy, and he's of course this really corrupt guy. Yes, he did introduce a lot of these people into the music scene. He's very powerful. He was able to bring all these new talents, but he's also this vampiric figure, and he screwed over so many people's lives that they started screwing over other people's lives. So it's like that's kind of how I saw the whole vampire thing in this movie, and the whole thing about the this musician who they want to take on board and turn him into a vampire. And they're telling him, you could live forever, you could go on tours, you could still go on tours all the time, and you're going to be so rich because you're living forever. So it's like signing a contract with the devil, really. So and truthfully, a lot of musicians do that. In fact, they might be very talented, but they want the fame, they want the fortune, they want the that um, that success, um, because a lot of times talent can only get you so far. Even though you are a great musician, even if you could really transcend space and time, like what is shown in the movie, there's no guarantee that you're going to become successful, because it just screws you over a lot of the time if you're just a musician or an artist. It's a very time consuming endeavor that really takes the whole of you, and you have to sacrifice quite a lot of different things in your life, your family life, your personal life, your sanity, just so you can be successful. And you got to deal with people like Remick in this movie, the vampire, right? And yeah, the way that they showed it was really really good, really interesting, really well made and well done. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Now, moving on more to the spoiler territory. Um, in the end scene, Smoke shoots down the KKK because they were gonna come to the farmhouse and the juke joint and kill him, because that was their whole deal. Like they're gonna sell it to these black people, and then once the party's over, they're gonna kill all these black people. That's the idea that the KKK had, right? So the problem I had with that ending, though, is that Smoke and Stack were very clearly shown to be gangsters. They were very clearly shown to be guys with guns, and they threatened that guy, the Hogwarts, who was selling him this property, that if they come to him with the KKK, then they're gonna kill him. But he still came with the KKK, with all the guns. So I'm so confused why this was there. This had to be there because, yes, I do understand the context in which it was there, but still, I felt like either Hogwarts shouldn't have informed him. Um, like I feel like it should have just not been there. It would have been better if it was more of a surprise that these guys came to attack them. Um, because I felt like it was only there to show Michael B. Jordan in an action scene where he's shooting down racist people. So it's like, yeah, yes, that is cool, that is amazing. But within this story, within the context of this story, is it really needed? I felt like it was not really needed. It would have been fine if the context of these kinds of KKK members, ex KKK members who are still racist, are still there. Um, but at least it could have been handled better. The way that they showed those KKK coming in, I felt like it would have been better if it was more of a surprise. Um, that you know, either they have no idea that he's gonna defend himself, or Smoke really doesn't know that these guys are gonna come. So both of it is not the case. So I feel like it would have been better if either of those things happened. Um, Aside from that, the ending scene of um, Preacher Boy is shown in the 1990s, where he's already like 80, 90 years old. Maybe like 70, 80 years old. I can't be certain. Because I think in the 1930s section, he's shown to be like 17, 18 years old. And then in the 1992 section, he must be like 80 years old, I guess. So, okay, Stack and Haley Steinfeld. I forgot her character's name. I don't know what her character's name was. So Stack and Haley Steinfeld come to meet Preacher Boy at a bar, because they are immortal because they're vampires, right? And this Preacher Boy is already 80 years old. And they come in. I thought they were gonna kill him or something, or um, they're gonna kill people at the bar. They're gonna eat all of them up or something, but that didn't happen. And instead, they're just talking to him normally. They're saying, "Oh, we bought all your records. Keep doing you. It looks like you're about to die soon, so there's no reason we have to kill you." And I felt like the you showed the vampires as really threatening and scary, and then in this scene, this last scene that you show, which comes after the credits, so I'm not sure what that choice was either. Um, but anyways, the these guys come in and try to just talk to him normally and say, "Oh, we bought all your records. You're doing good, and you know, we're we're just vampires. We're roaming around." And they're wearing all these very modern clothes from that time period, the 1990s. So yeah, it felt like they were supposed to be threatening, but they're not threatening anymore. So the point of the vampires in this movie is meant to be more threatening, right? So once you um, not show them as threatening in the last scene of the movie, then I feel like then it's not scary anymore, you know? So that was my main issue with the ending, even though in one thematic sense it works really well. On another thematic sense, it doesn't work that well, I felt. Um, because on one hand, it's good to see that it's meant to be that this preacher boy did not become a vampire. He did not sell his soul. He stayed true to himself and played music by himself on his own, and he did it honestly. He did it truthfully. He didn't destroy anyone. Um, so that is good, and we see this other guy who is respecting that, his the guy who's meant to be his uncle, right? So thematically, that's great, but on um on another sense, this vampire is meant to be this evil guy who sucks the people's souls out, right? So I would expect that that guy is not happy. That guy is not meant to be happy though, right? Because he's a vampire. He's meant to be this character who sucks the soul out of people, who gets these people to um, he's meant to be evil, right? So that was my issue with the ending. But even overall, the fact that they got so much of it right is still very very good. You know, there were so many moments where this could have gone wrong. I feel like this was such a different film for Ryan Coogler, because he has only made boxing films. He has made superhero films, right? So those films have a very different style that even if you go a little differently, those are gonna work even higher, even better. But this is a movie that's completely original, right? This is meant to be like a historical film, a horror film. It's very unusual for this type of film to come out. It only comes in like once in a blue moon, and most of the time it doesn't come out with this amount of budget. Like it, you can really tell that this is a big budget film, shot on 70 millimeters, shot on by a big director, Ryan Coogler, right? There were so many instances where this could have gone wrong, but I'm so happy that this has gone really really well. Even with with these flaws that I mentioned, it's still very good all the way through, and I'm glad that Ryan Coogler has transitioned from all this Marvel stuff and is going into this original film stuff. And I really want to see him do more of this. Um, I hope more directors actually do original films like this rather than MCU films. And if they do MCU films, I hope they push against the grain and take more risks, and not just be looking to make money, which ironically is what this film is about as well, because it's about not selling your soul. So I hope Ryan Coogler is really, sticks to his guns, and I'm also so happy that he is gonna have the rights to this film in the future, um, because he has this ownership scheme that he did with Warner Brothers. So I'm so happy for that, and yeah, I really really hope to see his next film, in whatever format he releases in, whether it's IMAX or whatever it is. I really want to see it. So yeah, that's pretty much my review. I do intend on checking this out once again in um, in Dolby. So I assume that Dolby is going to be even better than the CGS screen. I hope. So yeah, so that's the review. I'll see you guys in the next review. Bye.